Hello everyone, welcome back to our Python programming course. In the previous lecture, we learned how to create variables and store different types of information such as numbers, text, and boolean values. However, there was one limitation if you have all observed that every value in that program was fixed. For example, name is equals to Samrit. We are fixing the value Samrit in that variable name. Then every time we ran the program, the value of name will always be Samrit. But imagine, but imagine, we are creating a registration form. Will every user be named Samrit? Of course not. Different users have different names, different ages, different cities, and different information. So, instead of hard coding these values into our program, we should allow the user to enter their own information. This is exactly where user inputs come into the picture. By the end of today's lecture, you will learn how to make your programs interactive, how to accept information from users, and how to make decision based on that information. Now, why do we need user input? Let's understand with a simple example. Imagine you create a calculator. If you write num1 is equals to 10, num2 is equals to 20. Remember, here num1 and num2 are variables which is storing 10 and 20 as data. Now, if you print that, if you print the addition of num1 plus num2, what will happen? Every single time the program runs, the answer will always be 30. But a real calculator doesn't always add 10 and 20. Sometimes the user want to input Sometimes the user wants to add 15 and 8, sometimes 200 and 450, sometimes 3 and 7. A useful program shouldn't have fixed values. It should ask the user for the values. That's why almost every real world application takes input from users. Whether it's Instagram asking for your username, Amazon asking for your delivery address, or an ATM asking for your PIN. User input is everywhere. Now, in Python, we use the input function whenever we want to receive information from the user. The syntax is very simple. Let's move to VS Code and then we'll understand what's the syntax is, how we use input function, and many more. But before that, we need to practice more questions so that you can easily do this. So let's create a new file called python lecture 3.py. Yeah. So let's start with an example. Name is equals to Rahul, let's say. Then we print name. What will be the output? Rahul. Yes, it's Rahul. Now, now you want to make your program interactive. Whenever we run this program, there isn't any role of user over here. What will the user give information? How will the user give information over here? To accept the information, we use input function. How? What's the syntax? So the syntax is basically name is equals to input, then print name. So let's run and see what happens. So let's run and see what happens. I can give input over here. Let's give Samrid, and the output is Samrid because we are printing the name. And Samrid in the first is what we are giving input to the name variable using this input function. Now let's try once more. Let's give different examples. Rahul. So the name I am giving to the function is, to the input function is Rahul. Now this Rahul is getting stored in name, and then the data, or say Rahul, that is stored in name gets printed using the print function. So if I run this now, so if I enter this again, Rahul is printed. Now can you observe one thing? How will I understand? I have written the program so I can understand that I need to give input, but but a user who hasn't written this program won't understand he needs to give an input. So we'll write a note for the user, like enter your name. Now let's see what happens. When I run this program, see, enter your name. Now if I give Samrid over here, let's see what gets printed. Samrid. Now, one, this is basically a modification we did in this program. What is the modification? Enter your name. Now remember, whatever you type in double quotes inside the input function, or say the parenthesis of the input function, that gets directly printed in the in the program. Basically it is a message to the user. Let's see once more what happens. See, enter your name is coming. What does this mean? This means you are, or the this means the programmer wants the user to give something or to give some input. What is the input? To give my name. So Samrid, if I give, I'll be getting Samrid over here. So my name is Samrid and I am giving that to the program, and then the program is basically printing my name. So I hope this is clear till now. So the word input is a built-in Python function. So the text inside quotation marks is called the prompt. It tells the user what information should be entered. What the user types and submits by pressing enter is stored inside the variable on the left. In this case, the variable is name. So I hope you have understood what input function does. Now let's try some more examples with different information. Like city is equals to input, enter your city. Then let's say let's say hobby, input, enter your hobby. Now let's print my name is name and I live in city. My hobby is hobby. Now you might be wondering what I have written in this print function and why it looks so clumsy. Now let's break down before we see the output. So we already have learned that whatever we write in the double quote inside the print function gets directly printed as the output. Now we are basically formatting the output. Basically it means that we are formatting the output. How? I have taken the username. So my name is, now want the we don't want the word name. So we aren't putting the name word in the double quotes. We want the information stored in the variable name. So we will be writing name over here. Remember this? If I show you print name, what does this print? Does it prints does it print the word name? No, it prints the information stored in the word name. Similarly, name over here won't print itself. It will print the data stored in this variable. Then again, comma, and then again I want and I live in to be printed directly. So I am putting it in double quotes and I live in. Again I want the city name. So we are giving city the variable over here which will be storing the city where the user lives. Then my hobby is again what I want to be printed in the output directly. So I am putting it in double quotes and then I am using hobby variable to print whatever the hobby of the user is. So let's see what happens. So firstly the program, while I have executed, wants me to enter my name. So I'll be giving my name, that is Samrid. Then if I enter, I'll be getting the second question, that is enter your city. So I am from Durgapur. And then enter your hobby. So my hobby is coding. And then when I enter, we can see what the output actually is. My name is Samrit and I live in Durgapur and my hobby is coding. That's what we wanted. My name is Samrit and I live in Durgapur and my hobby is coding. So I guess you have all understood. So we practiced it, we understood it. Now I would like you to pause the video here, write a program that asks user their name, their favorite subject, and then display both the values. Don't copy my code directly. Try writing it yourself first. Once you have finished, resume the video. But before that, you can also practice one thing, that is output formatting, like we did in this. You can do what? You can write my name is the username and my favorite subject is the subject you want to input or the subject the user wants to input. So after completing this task, you can resume my video and learn further. So far everything seems straightforward, but there's one very important concept that every Python beginner needs to understand. Even if you enter a number using the input function, Python does not automatically treat it as a number. Let's see why that happens. Now, let's remove this, and when I write age is equals to input, enter your age. So sorry for the mistake. Enter your age. Then if I print age, let's see what actually happens. We are getting it as usual, enter your age. Now if I enter 20, I get 20. Now you will be asking what's the problem over here. The problem is when I will show you the data type of age. Type age. I hope you all remember what type does. It basically tells us the data type of the variable. Now let's check what's the data type. When I enter my age again 20, see, the data type of the age is string, but we are entering 20. That's where the problem occurs. When you use input function, whatever you whatever the user inputs or whatever the user gives or whatever information the user gives is stored in a string format, irrespective of being it a number, a boolean value, or whatever. Let's understand this with one more example, that is number is equals to input, enter a number, then print number. Print number. So we all know we'll be getting enter a number statement. So we are entering 20. We are getting 20. Now if I try to get try to know what data type the variable number is, let's see what happens. Again, when I give 50, it's giving class str. We have already understood that input function basically stores each and everything as string. So what we can do is we can try with each and every variable, we can try with each and every data type. So we were entering 50 thinking that we are giving an integer, but actually the variable number over here was storing 50 as string, we can see over here. Then let's try with the float value. So 6.7, still it's storing in a string format. Now here's the twist. Let's see why this matters actually. Imagine we want to add two numbers entered by the user. So this is number 1. So this is number 1 and then this is number 2. Enter second number. Let's write over here the first number. Okay. Now we need to get the sum of num1 and num2. So print num1 plus num2. Now being if they were actually integers, then the output should be the sum of two numbers, right? Let's see what actually we get. So enter first number, we give 20, then as second number we give 30. So what are we expect? So what output are we expecting? 50. But let's see what actually we get. We get 20, 30. Now this is the problem we will get. But we are getting 20 and 30 as the output, but we were expecting 50. Now why? Because num1 and num2 are strings. When the plus operator is used with the strings, Python joins them together instead of adding them mathematically. This process is called string concatenation. Let's understand with one more example. Let's understand the word string concatenation with one more example, that is print hello plus world. So what will be the output over here? We are getting hello and world. Now let's get it more clear with storing these two values in two different variables. That is, a is equals to hello and b is equals to world. Now print a a plus b. Now let's see what's the output is. Hello world again. So you are seeing we are concatenating these two values, that is hello and world, and we are getting the output as hello world. Let's take one more example. Python programming. Let's see what the output actually is. Python programming, but can you see over here that we are getting these two words without any space, but we want a space. That is again the role of formatting. So what we can do is we can add a space over here, because space is basically a character itself. So if we do like this, let's see what actually happens. Do we get the space? Yes, we are getting the space over here. We are getting the space between these two words, Python and programming. This is basically output formatting. So we have understood what is string concatenation, we have understood input function, but the problem there is still unsolved. That is, we are giving integer as the input, but using input function. Yeah, we are giving integer as the input using the input function, but the variable is storing it as string. Now we want the variable to store the integer as integer and not as the string. So what we will do? We use typecasting over here. Remember, we have already understood what typecasting is. Typecasting means converting one data type into another. Now, let's understand it with an example. So num is equals to input, enter, okay, enter a number. This was how we were giving input. Now we need to just write int over here. Remember, this was how we were typecasting a variable. Now if I write print num, then see the type of variable and then run it. Let's see what actually happens. Enter a number we get. So we write 50 over here, and then we get 50 as the output, because we were printing basically the input only. And now the important part is when we see the type of num, we get it as integer. Now we have understood. Let's try with one more example. Let's understand with one more example, that is adding two numbers. So num2 . So here you have written num2 is equals to int input enter second number. Now let's execute this program. So the first number we will give is 20, and then we will give 30. So this was the same thing we gave previously also using the input function. Though, so we were expecting output as 50, but we got actually 20, 30. Now we have typecasted it. So num1 and num2 are storing 20 and 30 as integers. So while we are printing num1 plus num2, the output again we are expecting is 50, and let's see what actually the output is. So it's 50 again. So we have understood. Now let's break down the things. Now Python first converts the strings into integers, that is, the input function still takes 20 from here as string only, but the int over here actually converts this 20 from string to integer. Similarly, in num2, the input function takes 30 as string only, and then the int function over here actually converts the 30 from string to integer, and then at final finally num1 and num2 stores 20 as integer and 30 as integer. Then when we add num1 plus num2, we get 50 as the output. So we have understood this simple thing. Now similarly, if you remember, instead of, if we want to give float as the input, so you'll use float over here instead of int. Now we have understood the int part. Now let's try it using float. So price is equals to float input, enter the price, then print price, and then we will see the data type of price too. So type price. So let's run it and then we'll understand what actually happens. So enter the price. We are giving input as 8.9. So this is a float number, because we have understood the float number also carries, because we have already understood the float number has decimal part. So when we give 8.9, the output should be 8.9, then class float. So let's see class float, and the output is 8.9 and class float. So what actually happens again is the input function is this one. So this takes input in string format only, and then the float function actually changes the string to float, and then that float data is actually stored in price, and then when we are printing price, we actually get the price not in a string format but in a float format. And then when we check the data type of price, it is storing a float data type, so the type of price is float. Now let's see how to find an area using this thing. So length is equals to float, enter the length, let's take width is equals to float input, enter the width. Now area is equals to length into width, then we will be printing area of rectangle is area. So let's break down this. Firstly, we are storing the length in float format in the variable length. Then we are storing the width of the rectangle in float format in the variable width. Then In the third statement, that is area is equals to length into width, we are storing the multiplication of length and width, which will again be a float number only, will be stored in the variable area. So the point over here is the area variable, we haven't declared any data type for that, but though we are storing float number only in the area, the area variable itself becomes float. Now we will see that too, but before that we need to print the area of the rectangle is then the specific area. So let's run this program and see what actually the output is. So let's enter the length as 3.9 and then the width as 5.0. So what we are expecting is, so we will be expecting 19.5 as the output. So let's see what is the output actually. 19.5. So one more thing we'll be practicing over here is print type area. So the length is 3.9. Let's take 3, then width is 5. The output should be 15, and let's see the type of area. So the type of area is float. So we have understood this basics. Now this was valid conversion, or where the length we are giving is in float and we are converting it into the float. Now what if we enter value that can actually not, typecasting only works when the entered value can actually be converted. Like here we were giving 3.0 and we're converting it into float. So it was possible, right? Now, typecasting only works when the entered value can actually be converted. Let's understand this with an example. So, let's take age is equals to int input, enter your age, and then when we print age, let's see what happens. Now if I give 20 over here, we'll get output as expected, but now if I give 20 like this, what actually happens? Will we get error? Yes. What's the error? That is value error. Invalid literal for int with base 10. What is actually happening? When we are giving 20 like this, it is a collection of characters or a string. Now you can't typecast or you can't change this string into integer. It's not possible for Python to change this. So this is where we get error. Python cannot convert the word 20 into a number. Whenever you use int or float, the user must enter a valid numerical value. Now, again a small task for you. Pause the video and complete this exercises I'm going to write in this. So the first exercise for you all are ask the user for two integers and print their sum, and also check the data type. So check the data type of the input and the outputs. So let's comment it out first. Now, second, ask the price of the product and print it. Now, third, ask for length and breadth of a rectangle and calculate its area and perimeter. Now, the fourth one, ask for student's age and print whether it was stored as an integer or a string. How will you check this? Using the type function. So, try these programs on your own before resuming the video. Good job. Our programs can now accept information from users and work with numbers correctly. But a program that only accepts input isn't enough. The next step is making decisions. For example, is the student old enough to vote? Has the student passed the exam? Is the entered password correct? In the next part, we'll learn how Python makes these decisions using comparison operators, logical operators, and the if statements. Previously, we learned how to take input from the user and convert the input into numbers using int and float. Now, let's make our programs smarter. Until now, our every program we have written has executed every line from top to bottom. But real world application don't work like that. Think about an ATM. Does it always allow you to withdraw money? No. It first checks whether you have enough balance. Or think about Instagram. Does it allow anyone to log in? No. It first checks whether the username and password are correct. The ability to make decisions based on condition is called decision making. In Python, we do this using in Python, we do this using the if statement. But before learning if, we need to understand how Python compares value. So let's start with the comparison operators. Comparison operators compares two values and returns either true or false. Let's look at each one. Let's look at each one. So print 10 is equals to 10. So let's see what's the output is. It's true. So remember, it's a boolean output. Both values are equal, so Python returns true. Now let's check the other case. Now 10 equals to 20 is actually false. Both values are not equal. 10 and 20 aren't equal, right? Now we are giving 10 not is equals to 20. In Python, exclamation mark means not, and then equals to means this whole thing, not exclamation and then equals to actually means not equals to. So what we are writing, print 10 not is equals to 20. So this part actually checks that is 10 equals to 20 or is 10 not equals to 20. So we know 10 is not actually equals to 20. So what the output should be? True. Yes, the output is true. Let's check the third operator, or let's check the third comparison operator. 10 is less than 20. 10 is less than 20. So it should give true. And we are getting true. Now the fourth one, 10 is greater than 20. It should give false. Yes, we are getting false again. Now, one more operator is greater than equals to. What does this mean? It will check if 10 is either greater than 20 or 10 is equals to 20. So both these cases are false. 10 is not greater than 20, neither is 10 equals to 20. So it should give false. And we are getting false over here. Now let's see. Now let's see the fifth one. That is 10 is less than equals to 20. Now let's see what actually the output is. We are getting true over here. Why? Because 10 is less than 20 or 10 is equal to 20. Either of them should be true. So 10 is actually less than 20. So we are getting true. Now, what are the comparison operators we learned? First is equals to, then not equals to, then greater than, then less than, then greater than equals to, then less than equals to. So these are the six. So these are the six operators or six comparison operators in Python. The first one is equals to. It checks that the value in the right position and the value in the left position are equal or not. If yes, if they are equal, then the output is true, or else the output is false. Now the second one is not equals to. The second one checks that the data in the right side and the data in the left side are actually equals to or not. If they aren't equals, if they are not equal, then the output is true, and if they are equal, the output is false. now the third operator is greater than. It checks that the number in the left side is greater than or not than the right side. If the number in the left side is greater than the number in the right side, it returns true, or else it returns false. Next, the fourth one is lesser than. The next, the fourth number is lesser than. It basically checks that the number in the left side is less than the number in the right side or not. If yes, then it returns true, or else it returns false. Then the second last, that is lesser than or equals to. Lesser than or equals to checks that the number in the that the number in the left side is either less than or equals to the number in the left side in the right side. Now, even if a number is less than but is now the last one is greater than equals to. It basically checks that the number in the left side is greater than or equals to the right number. If yes, then it returns true, or else it returns false. Now pause the video and try each comparison operator with different numbers. Before running the code, try to predict whether the answer will be true or false. Then click, then check if your prediction was correct. Now, we are done with the comparison operators. But sometimes one condition isn't enough. Imagine you are applying for a driving license. You must be at least 18 years old and should have the required documents. Since there are two conditions, we use logical operators. So, there are three logical operators. Let's see one by one. So the first one is and, the second one is or, and the third one is not. Now we'll understand each and every one using some examples. Now, let's comment this out. Now, print true let's see the AND operator first. So age is equals to 20, has license is equals to true. Now if I write print age greater than is equals to 18 and has license so before executing this 3 lines of code, predict what could be the output. Before seeing the output, let's first break down this and understand what actually happens in this code. First, we have declared a variable called age, and then the value in the age variable is stored as 20. Now, has license is equals to true. So it is basically a boolean data type, and has license actually stores true. Now, when we use AND operators, AND operator only results true if both the conditions we are checking is true. If either is false, if one of them are false or both of them are false, the AND operator returns false. Now, if we see the first condition, that is age greater than is equals to 18, if we check this, so my age is 20 and now 20 is greater than 18. So this part automatically becomes true. So we are done with the first condition. Let's see what the second condition results. Now we have already stored true in the has license variable. So this part becomes true. or we have fixed this part as true right now. So if I execute right now, the output should be true. And yes, we are getting true as the output. Now let's experiment something. Instead of 20, we will write 16. Now, if we see 16 is greater than is equals to 18, this condition becomes false. But this condition remains true because we have already stored true over here. So now we have one condition as false and the second condition as true. But as I said before, and only results true if both the conditions are true. But here in this case, one is false and the second is true. So the output we should be expecting is false. Now let's see what output do we get. And yes, we are getting false as the output. Now we have done with the first case, that is both the conditions are true. Second case, false and true. Now let's see if both are false. So instead of true in the has license, we'll write false. So now both the conditions are false. Now let's see what's the output. And again, yes, we are getting false. So I hope we have understood the AND operator part. Now we will see the OR operator. Now, if I write print true or false, let's see. So, true or false. Now, as we know the meaning of OR, as we know the literal meaning of OR, that either the first condition should be true or the second condition should be true. The OR operator will result true. Now, the first case is if both the conditions are true, the OR operator will return true. If one of them are false but the second is true, still the OR operator will result true. But if both the conditions are false, the OR operator will also result false. Now, the first condition over here is true and the second is false. So let's see what's the output. The output is true. So the first condition is true and the second is false. Now let's change this to true as well. Now let's see what's the output. Again it's true. Now we have done with the first two cases. Let's move to the third case and the last one, that is false. Now, here both the conditions are false. Let's see what's the output. And yes, as expected, the output is false. So I hope we have again understood this part. And moving on to the third or say the last logical operator, that is not. Now moving on to the last logical operator, that is not. So not operator simply reverses the result. True becomes false and false becomes true. Let's understand this with a small example. Let's see print not true. As I said, not operator basically reverses the result. When we are providing true over here, the output should be false. And now, instead of true over here, if I give false, the output we would be expecting is true. And yes, we are getting true over here. Now, I hope these two operators, comparison and logical operators, are clear to us. Now, we have everything we need to make decisions. The if statement tells Python, run this block of code only if the condition is true. If the condition is false, Python skips that block. So, to make decisions in Python, we have understood operators. Now, the syntax we will be learning for if. Now we will learn the syntax how now we'll learn the syntax of if, and then we will be able to make our programs take decision. So there are two important things to notice. So let's see the syntax first. If condition then statement. Now there are two important things to notice. The first line ends with a colon over here, and the second thing is the next line is indented. That is, after the first line we are leaving some space and then we are writing the second line. See this part. Now this is called indentation. Indentation is very important in Python because it tells Python which statement belongs to the if block. Now we have understood the syntax, we have understood the concept. Now we'll understand this thing using examples. So let's move to examples. So the first example is, let's write over here example 1. Now let's see, age is equals to 20 if age is greater than or is equals to 18, print you are eligible to vote. Now we have fixed age over here as 20. Now we know this condition is true, so we are hoping that this is what the output should be. Let's execute and see. So yes, you are eligible to vote. Now let's understand this in different way. If I give 16 in case of 20, now this condition becomes false. Now as I told before, as soon as this condition becomes false, this statement would be ignored by the compiler. So the output of this should be nothing. Nothing should be the output of this. And yes, we are getting nothing as the output. Now we have understood this. Now we'll do a mini project, that is pass or fail calculator. So here in the previous example we had fixed the age, but here we will take it as user input. So marks is equals to input, enter your marks. If marks greater than is equals to 40, print congratulations, you have passed. So let's see how we'll understand this. So enter your marks. We'll be entering first a passing marks, so 90. So we know this condition will be true because 90 is greater than 40. So this should be printed. Now let's see if I give enter over here. Yes, we are getting congratulations, you have passed. Now let's see the second case, that is 38. Now 38 is less than 40. So this condition becomes false. So this won't get printed. Congratulations, you have passed won't get printed. So we'll get nothing as the output over here. And yes, we got the expected output. Now, we have seen both the cases, numbers greater than 20 and numbers less than, marks greater than 40 and marks less than 40. Now what if I give 40, congratulations, you have passed. Notice 40 is greater than 40. This condition becomes false, but the second thing over here is equals to, so 40 greater than equals to 40, so 40 is equals to 40, so this becomes true and hence this gets printed. Now we have understood how to use if. Now I'll see that what if there are multiple conditions that we want. So we'll be using else over here and we'll write print sorry you have failed. Remember when I was giving number less than 40, I wasn't getting any output. It isn't a good program there. Let's optimize this. So for optimizing, we have written else print sorry you have failed. Now first we'll see the output and then we'll break down this and we'll understand it clearly. So the first case is a marks greater than or equals to 40. So the if condition over here will run. Now if I give 90, we know 90 is greater than or equals to 40. So the first statement inside the if block will be executed. Now if I enter, we only get congratulations, you have passed. So here if the compiler checks the first condition, that is the if condition, and if it is true, it will ignore the else part. It will ignore the else part if the if condition is true. And if we see the next case, that is number less than 40, like if we say 29. Now this condition is false, so compiler will check this condition, and if it is false, it will ignore this statement and move to the else part. Now in the else part there isn't any condition. Else basically represents that if this condition is false, this will get printed. So the statement in the else block will get printed. So if I give 29, so it should print sorry you have failed. Let's see what's the output. Yes, we are getting the desired one. Sorry you have failed. So I hope we have understood this. We'll practice more. So we'll practice more programs in our upcoming lectures. Till then, a small homework for you all is a small till then I'll give you some list of practice questions. So you all need to practice them and comment what are the output you're getting, if you have any problem or not, something like that. So the first program you need to practice is ask the user to enter their age if the age is 18 or above, then print you can vote, else print you cannot vote. So this is the first question you need to practice. Let's see the second one. The second one says ask the user to enter a temperature if the if it is above 35, print it's a hot day. So we are done with the, so given the second question, we'll see the third and the last one, that is ask the user to enter a number, and if it is positive, print positive number. Else print negative. So I hope you all will practice these 3 questions. So excellent work everyone. Today we have learned how to take input from the user, convert input into numbers, compare values using comparison operators, combine conditions using logical operators. We wrote our first decision making program using the if statement. Now in the next lecture we will continue if else, if else and nested if statements, allowing our programs to make even smarter decisions. So thank you everyone. Let's meet in the next lecture.